right, so I'm currently on the phone with Prithvi. He's another musician that reached out about the current interview series going on. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the opportunity to introduce himself.
Hey Alexander, my name is Prithvi. I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm from India. I've spent most of my life being brought up in Dubai. I pursued a degree in computer science engineering, and then I realized, oh, this is not the thing for me. After working for a couple of years, I dropped everything and decided to study songwriting at the Berkeley College of Music, which is where I spent the last of my 3 years in Boston. I just recently moved to LA, pursuing this whole dream as a singer-songwriter, and let's see how it goes now.
Awesome. So I always like to start in the beginning. When did you first find music, and what about it was really important and important enough that you wanted to spend your life doing it?
The funny thing about that is I'm the first person in the family who's into music. I don't have any musical background in any other sense. I think how I found music at the beginning was when my parents forced me to take keyboard classes, and I hated it. I hated being forced into that, but I did it anyway, and that's the first taste of music I got, I guess. I kind of despised it, honestly, but it was something that took about maybe 2 hours of my week growing up. And the more I did it, the more I kind of enjoyed it. I fell out of love with it. I stopped classes for like 5 to 6 years before I found it again through YouTube tutorials and learning how to play the keyboard. And I would play my favorite songs. The first band I ever listened to was Coldplay, and then became the Beatles. And I was very influenced by their styles of music, and I would try writing music as well. So I think it started off really early on, maybe when I was like 10 years old. It carried on till I was 16, 17 in school and college. I was always in my first university when I was doing engineering. I was always the guy I'm the music guy. Oh, I'm that guy who sings. I'm that guy who plays the keyboard. I'm just that music guy. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I guess I'll accept that. I'll take it.
Sure. So, did you do any classes in like high school or junior high that were part of the band curriculum?
No, not at all. So we would have like an annual day, which is an event that's there once every year where we would have a skit and we would have a dance and we would have one song. And you either had to choose whether you wanted to be a singer or you want to be a dancer. And I would be singing because I'm like, I can't dance. I can't move my limbs. This is not something I can do at all. Let me try singing at least. So I would always be placed in that for like, so 3 years in a row, I would always be in the singing part of things. I would be in the choir. I would either be out the first couple of years I was in part of the group, like part of the singing choir, and then the last year I was the lead singer, which was cool. But yeah, that was always I would always gravitate towards the singing aspect. I did not want to dance. I'm good.
Okay, so along with singing, did you also pick up any instrumentation?
Yeah, so like I said, I first picked up the keyboard growing up, so that was something I would work on. I would play the keyboard, and then I would eventually start singing as well while playing, so kind of just accompany myself. And that's how the first few songs that I ever wrote were all through the keyboard. That would be my principal instrument, where I would come up with melodies or whatever it is, and I would build a song from there more often than not.
Sure. And so it sounds like that kind of all happened really organically outside of the classical curriculum. It sounds like you kind of taught yourself and began the creative process yourself.
Yeah, for sure. The thing is, I mean, I love listening to music, and I used to watch a lot of TV shows back in the day. Okay, I'm not that old. I don't know why I said back in the day, but in the early 2000s, I would watch a lot of TV shows, and I remember back like music used to be a big part of TV shows. It still is, obviously, but there would be so many songs that I would hear on shows like there was these shows like Chuck, there's Vampire Diaries, all these little random shows across network TV, which I I love the songs in those shows, and I would listen to them on and off, and I would try writing stuff which sounds similar to that, and that's usually how music came about. Like when I'm writing music as well, I would try to reference these other tracks that I've already heard throughout
Mm-hmm.
other places, and then obviously I would try to make it as different as I can, but still, retaining elements that I really like from different things that I've listened to or whatever.
Sure. I think that's a pretty natural regression. You try to emulate what you've heard to see, how it was made, see if you can, make it happen as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's like a huge part of, and I learned later on that's like a huge part of the songwriting technique anyway. So it's not like I was doing something wrong. So it's one of those things where if you can imitate someone else while retaining an original flavor to it, that's you're successful. You've done it, because that's what music is in any way, right? There's
Yep.
always artists nowadays taking influences from back in the 60s, 70s, wherever it is. But what they do is bring something new to it. So it sounds different while still retaining that quality that made it amazing back then as well, right?
Absolutely. So from there, obviously, aside from just music at large, what were some of your motivations for going to Berkeley?
Um, I think more often than not, it was obviously I enjoy the music. I knew that I did not want to do a day job, and I didn't like sitting at a desk. I didn't like doing the things that seem monotonous. I think what more than that, I feel like I just wanted to make my parents' life difficult, and they're like, "Oh no, why can't you do something simple and just stick to a day job?" I'm like, "No, I want to be creative." I feel like I have this thing where I think when it comes to music in general, I feel like it always has the ability to bring people, so many people together from all walks of life. It doesn't matter. You may have so many of these differences, but when it comes to music, you both can agree on something either being amazing or maybe not being that amazing. And I think I really liked being able to feel that when it came to music. And even another really big factor for me is that I'm coming in from a South Indian family, and back home it was always you're always like put into these fields that you're expected to do. It could be engineering, it could be being a doctor, it could be stuff like that where there's like a financial stability and career of sorts. But obviously, there's so many of us who have these different passions and something that we're really good at. And I wanted to kind of show in a way that it is possible to chase your dreams if it's something you're really passionate about. And I feel very strongly about encouraging other people to do the same as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So from there, what was the next motivation to go, from Boston all the way to Los Angeles and move coast to coast?
That was the one of the biggest decision makers, and that was that I hated the weather in Boston. It was way too cold for me, and I've been living in Dubai all my life, so it's always hot and it's warm, and winters are still kind of warm. It's fine. Boston was a real shock to my system. I was like, oh, I can't handle this cold. I can't handle the snow. So that was a huge factor. I want to say it's more than that, but that obviously that was one of the biggest factors. But in general, the music that I make is very pop driven, and the difference. I kept looking between New York and LA, and New York, while it has a strong pop scene as well, I think LA is this huge field of pop, and it is in the entertainment industry. You're kind of close to in that action as well. And then obviously the weather, which
Yep.
really helps. And I've been in LA for about a month now, and it's satisfying. It's so nice to not think about, oh, I don't have to wear winter wear, like heavy jackets. I'm good. I can just enjoy my daily walks or whatever it is. It's great.
And New York has snow.
And New York is, yeah, snow. And I think the couple of times I've been to New York as well, it's not it's too crowded for me, and I feel and it's kind of dirty, and I was like, I think LA, even though it's still dirty, at least it's spaced out, so it's not like you're always surrounded by it, so it's cool.
Right. It's just as many people. It's just wider and not tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So what kind of stuff are you working on now? What projects are you trying to get into? Are you looking for like session work? Are you working on your own albums? Like what is on your plate?
So as I came in here, the main goal was trying to look for session work. That's still something I'm trying to get into. I think it's one of those situations where you know someone who knows someone who knows someone, and then you finally get into that area, like in that sense. But apart from that, there are a couple of singles I'm working on at the moment, which I do have a hope of actually making an album. I believe in making albums and not singles, even though what I've done so far is only release singles. I really strongly believe in like a whole body of art that just reflects who I am in that moment of time, and then keep building that over a couple of years. But at the moment, there are a couple of singles I'm working on, which I do hope to form a 6-song album or 7-song album in the next year. But that's more what I'm doing right now, just connecting with different people. Have a couple of producers lined up who I want to work with, and hopefully they'll say yes to me. I guess my songs will have to speak for themselves. It's like auditioning a song for a producer I really like and be like, hey, you like this song? Maybe you want to produce this for me? That'd be great. So that's where it's at right now.
Sure, awesome. And along those lines, where would you like to see yourself be in 5, 10 years?
Um, that is a fully loaded question, but at the moment, I've always seen myself as I don't want to be like, oh, this huge pop star or huge star. I just want to be able to make a good living off the music that I make. Just live happily, live safe, just be happy, healthy, all of that. Ideally, I think in my first month in LA in general, I feel like this would be a place I would like to settle in because it seems a lot like me. Just a little weird, a little safe, a little not safe sometimes, and it has like all people from all walks of life over here. Lots of great food as well. So what I plan on hoping is that being in LA in the next 5 to 10 years, have a good body of work that I'm building, gigging around, performing and writing for other artists as well. Something that I really enjoy doing is writing songs for other people, and that's something that I want to keep working on and do a lot more of. So, and there's the idea of the LA song, which kind of means you have like the songs on the top 40, which are just written by 10 to 20 people, and I always grew up thinking, oh, and the people who write music is just like, it's one person behind the song, but I've learned that's not true. There's like so many wrong songwriters on different songs, and that's kind of, I would love to be in that field, love to be in that area where like I'm one of those people who wrote one of your favorite songs.
Sure, yeah, that's definitely a very cool goal. So what are some of your favorite memories around music that have happened to you, whether it was playing a show or recording something, just something that sticks out to you?
One of my favorite shows was funny enough. I was in Dubai. I'd done a couple of open mics, and I didn't build a name for myself, but there were people who kind of knew me around the town, and I got invited to perform at this inauguration of a festival, and it was in the desert. It was in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't know any of these people. And I went out to perform, and I felt so awkward and so uncomfortable. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This feels so out of place. I don't even know where I am. And there are like 30 to 40 people who are doing their own thing, and I'm just in the corner and singing. And no one really cares. I could just disappear and no one would really notice, or so I thought. And I had like a set list, like an hour long set list prepared, and I'm going through the material. Like 15, 20 minutes in, there are these three people who are staring at me and having the time of their life, singing along. I just did a bunch of covers then. I remember singing Yellow by Coldplay. I sang a song by Nick Jonas, and I was singing random songs which I thought would be fun. I don't know if I misread the event, but I thought it would be fun. But there were these three people who were just looking at me and having such a good time, and it felt so good. I didn't care. It was just three people, but they had such a fun time. They were so into it. They kept encouraging me and pegging me on to sing more and more. And I feel like I got a real kick out of it. It was a real rush, a real thrill for me. And I just want to do that. I want to do that over and over again. I just want to connect with me. One person in the car, two people, that'll always give me so much joy and so much satisfaction to have that smile on their face, or just have them so into singing their heart out and just singing their favorite songs. And eventually I feel like that's my goal, is to have someone sing my song back at me like that with that same enthusiasm, right? So that was one of my highlights growing up when I was like 15, 16.
Awesome. Very cool. So where can people check out your stuff? What are some links to your social media?
You can check me out on all streaming services. My name is Prithvi Prajosh. That is PRITHVI PRAJOSH. That's my same social handle on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you want to look for me. It's just my first name, last name. It's a mouthful, but once you get it, I promise you, it's worth it.
Excellent. And so I always like to give the person that I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So a message that you kind of feel resonates with you.
One of the biggest things, especially that I learned in the past couple of years when I was studying at Berkeley, because you're surrounded by so much talent all the time, you kind of get awed by the feel of it. One of the things I really strongly believe in is always ask for help, regardless of what it may be. If you feel like you're not good enough to do something, there's always someone who may have an idea of it. It could be in any walk of life, any field. Just always ask for help. Always feel free to reach out, because you can always learn a lot more from the person sitting next to you and they can take something away from you as well. Just don't be overawed by any situation. Don't feel like you're not good enough, because more often than not, the person sitting next to you is probably thinking or feeling the same, and you can always learn from each other. So that's one of the biggest things I really learned, was just always ask for help, no matter what.